I stood in front of Bella Luna, the most prestigious Italian restaurant in Boston, watching my reflection in the gilded windows. The same windows I used to clean as a teenage waitress 15 years ago. Now at 33, I own not just this restaurant, but the entire hospitality group that had acquired it 3 months ago. My name is Olivia Mitchell, though my family still calls me Liv when they remember to call me at all. Tonight was my sister Madison's birthday celebration, an event that promised to be as uncomfortable as every other family gathering I'd attended in the past decade. Your usual table is ready, Ms. Mitchell. Marco, the maitre d', greeted me with a knowing smile. He was one of the few who knew about my recent acquisition of the restaurant. Not tonight, Marco. I'm here for the Madison Carter party. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he maintained his professional composure. Of course, they're in the grand room. I smoothed down my simple black dress, Chanel, though you wouldn't know it unless you knew what to look for. That was my style. Understated, but impeccable, unlike my sister Madison, who believed that success should be worn like a crown, preferably one dripping with diamonds. The sound of laughter guided me to the private dining room. Through the frosted glass doors, I could hear Madison's voice, loud and commanding, just like our mother's. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. "Oh, Liv, you actually came," Madison's voice carried across the room, drawing everyone's attention. She stood at the head of an elegant table wearing a red designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her husband, James, sat beside her, already looking bored with the proceedings. Our parents occupied the seats of honor near Madison. Mom in her perfectly coordinated outfit. Dad pretending to be interested in whatever James was saying about his latest real estate venture. My younger brother Tyler and his wife Sophie were there too, along with various aunts, uncles, and cousins, all seated at the main table. "Happy birthday, Madison," I said, approaching with a small gift bag. She air-kissed my cheek, taking the bag with a practiced smile. "Thanks, sweetie. We've got you set up right over there." She gestured to a smaller table in the corner, clearly separated from the main gathering. The kids' table. I felt my face flush as I noticed my cousin's children already seated there. The oldest no more than 12. "I'm sorry, what?" "Well, we had to arrange seating by success status. You understand," Madison said with a laugh that others around the table echoed. "The main table is for the adults with real careers." "I mean, what is it you do again?" "Some kind of consulting." I caught my mother's eye, hoping for some support, but she just gave me that same disappointed look I'd grown accustomed to. The one that said, "If only you'd followed our plan for your life." "Investment strategy," I said quietly, knowing they wouldn't bother to understand anyway. Right, Madison waved her hand dismissively. "Anyway, you'll have fun with the kids. Maybe you can learn something from their lemonade stand business plans." More laughter. Tyler at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he said nothing. He never did. I stood there for a moment considering my options. I could make a scene, leave dramatically, or I smiled and walked to the kids' table. "Hello everyone," I said to my young tablemates who looked up from their phones with mild interest. As I sat down, I pulled out my own phone and sent a quick text to Marco. Time for that special welcome we discussed. Madison was just launching into a story about her recent promotion at her father-in-law's company when Marco entered the room, followed by the owner's traditional procession of servers with champagne. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marco announced, his voice carrying the perfect mix of authority and deference. "Welcome to Bella Luna. We are particularly honored tonight to have with us." Madison preened, clearly expecting her name to follow. "Our new owner who has just acquired not only this restaurant, but our entire restaurant group. Please welcome Miss Olivia Mitchell." The champagne glasses that had been raised in anticipation froze halfway to lips. Madison's face went from smug to shocked in an instant, her perfectly glossed mouth hanging open. Mom's hand flew to her pearl necklace. Her tell when she's truly rattled. "Liv," Tyler managed to sputter. I stood up slowly from the kids' table, smoothing my dress. "Yes, brother dear. You own Bella Luna?" Madison's voice had lost all its earlier condescension, replaced by disbelief. "Actually," I said, accepting a glass of champagne from Marco. "I own the entire Mitchell hospitality group." Bella Luna is just one of our recent acquisitions. We have 37 properties across the East Coast. The silence that followed was deafening. 20 pairs of eyes stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Maybe they were. But how? Mom finally managed. I took a sip of champagne, savoring both its taste and the moment. That consulting work you all found so amusing. I specialize in restaurant turnarounds and acquisitions. I've been building my company for the past decade while you were all busy dismissing me. Why didn't you tell us? Dad demanded, his face reddening. Would you have listened? I asked simply. When have you ever listened? Madison's face had turned the same shade as her dress. Her husband James was suddenly looking at me with new interest, no doubt calculating the net worth of 37 high-end restaurants in his head. Now, I said, turning to Marco. I believe my sister requested the special anniversary champagne, the one that costs $2,000 a bottle. Madison's eyes widened. She had indeed requested it, probably assuming she could write it off through her father-in-law's company. Put it on my tab, Marco, I said with a smile. After all, family is family. The irony of my words wasn't lost on anyone in the room. I raised my glass. To success, however you choose to measure it. The rest of Madison's birthday dinner unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance of discomfort. Every few minutes, someone at the main table would glance at me, then quickly look away when I caught their eye. The $2,000 champagne sat mostly untouched. Apparently, success doesn't taste as sweet when someone else is paying for it. I stayed at the kids' table, but now my young cousins were suddenly fascinated by me. 12-year-old Emma whispered, "Do you really own all of this?" I nodded, helping her cut her pasta into manageable bites. "That's so cool. Mom says you were always the quiet one." "Sometimes the quiet ones are just busy building something," I whispered back, making her giggle. Madison, however, wasn't handling the revelation quite as well. I could see her texting furiously under the table, no doubt trying to verify my claims about Mitchell Hospitality Group. Good luck with that. I'd kept my ownership private through a maze of holding companies and subsidiaries. Until tonight, only my core executive team knew who really ran things. As the dessert plates were being cleared, my mother finally worked up the courage to approach my table. She'd reapplied her lipstick. Another nervous tell. "Olivia, dear," she began, her voice straining to sound casual. "Why don't we have lunch tomorrow? Just us girls. We have so much to catch up on." I dabbed my napkin to my lips, taking my time before responding. "I'm afraid I have a full day tomorrow, Mom. Board meetings for 3 properties, then a flight to Miami to oversee our newest acquisition." "Miami?" She blinked rapidly. "But you never mentioned." "I mention a lot of things, Mom. You just never listened." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Behind her, I could see Dad pretending to be absorbed in his phone, but his forehead was beaded with sweat. He was probably remembering all the times he dismissed my little consulting business at family gatherings. Madison chose that moment to make her grand move. She pulled her chair over to our table, designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "Liv, we should talk about collaboration opportunities. James and I have been thinking about getting into the restaurant business ourselves." Of course, they had, now that they knew it was profitable. "Actually," I said, "I'm quite particular about my business partners. I only work with people who have genuine passion for hospitality, not just interest in profits." "But we're family," Madison protested, reaching for my hand across the table. I moved mine away, pretending to adjust my napkin. "Are we?" I asked quietly. "Because an hour ago, I wasn't even family enough to sit at your table." The color drained from her face. "That was just a joke, Liv. You're so sensitive." "No, it wasn't a joke. It was a power play, one you've been making since we were kids." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "The difference is now I get to make one of my own." I turned to Marco, who had been hovering discreetly nearby. "Please inform Mrs. Carter that her standing reservation for Sunday brunches will need to be revalidated. We're implementing a new membership system." Madison's gasp was audible. Those Sunday brunches were her social crown jewel, where she entertained her carefully curated circle of friends. "You wouldn't dare." "I wouldn't. I am. In fact," I continued loud enough for everyone to hear, The entire Carter family's preferential status is under review. James finally looked up from his phone, alarm crossing his face. He used Bella Luna for all his business meetings, leveraging the prestigious address to impress clients. Marco, I added, please ensure that Mr. Carter's business account is transferred to our standard corporate rate structure. No more special discounts. This is ridiculous, Madison sputtered. Daddy, say something. Our father stood up, straightening his tie. His way of preparing for confrontation. Now, Olivia, let's be reasonable. Your sister didn't mean any harm. We're family. We should be supporting each other. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Supporting each other? Like when I needed help starting my business and you told me to get a real job instead, or when Madison borrowed money from me for her wedding, then conveniently forgot about it because family helps family. That was different, he protested weakly. You're right. It was different because back then you thought I was nobody. Back then you all treated me like I was nothing more than the family disappointment, the quiet one, the one who wouldn't amount to anything. I walked to the main table and picked up the untouched bottle of expensive champagne. You know what the funny thing is? I bought this restaurant group 3 months ago. I've been to every family dinner since then, listening to you all brag about your achievements, watching you seat me at corner tables or with the children. Not once did any of you bother to ask about my life, my work, my success. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the kids had stopped playing with their phones, sensing the gravity of the moment. But now, I continued, now that you know what I've built, suddenly I'm worth talking to. Suddenly, I'm family again. I handed the champagne to Marco. Put this back in the cellar. I think we've all had enough celebration for one night. Tyler stood up, his face flushed with what looked like shame. Livy, I'm sorry. I should have said something earlier about the seating, about everything. Yes, you should have, I agreed. But you never do you, Tyler? You just watch and stay quiet like I used to. The difference is I learned to speak up. I turned to my mother, who was still standing frozen beside the kids' table. You always wanted me to be more like Madison, more outgoing, more ambitious, more everything. Well, congratulations, Mom. I built something bigger than anything Madison has ever achieved. Are you proud now? She opened her mouth, then closed it again, words failing her for perhaps the first time in her life. I picked up my purse, Hermes, not that they'd noticed, and walked toward the door. Dinner's on the house tonight. Consider it my last act of family charity. Olivia, wait, Madison called out, her voice cracking. Please, we can talk about this. We can fix this. I paused at the door, looking back at my family, all of them now standing, looking lost and small in the grand dining room. No, Madison, we can't, because you can't fix years of dismissal and disrespect with one apology. You can't erase a lifetime of making me feel small just because you suddenly realize I'm bigger than you thought. What do you want from us? My father asked, his voice heavy with resignation. Nothing, I said simply. I don't want anything from you anymore. That's the beauty of success. It shows you exactly who you are and exactly who everyone else is too. I nodded to Marco. Make sure they get home safely. And Marco, that new membership system we discussed, implement it tomorrow. As I walked through the restaurant, I could hear the murmur of shocked conversations beginning behind me. By tomorrow, the story would be all over their social circle. How quiet little Olivia Mitchell owned one of the city's most prestigious restaurant groups. How she'd put her family in their place at her sister's birthday dinner. Outside, my driver was waiting with the car. As I slid into the back seat, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I looked exactly as I had walking in. Composed, professional, understated. But something had changed. A weight I'd carried for years had lifted. My phone buzzed with incoming messages. Madison, Mom, Tyler, even James. I turned it off without reading any of them. They'd have to learn, just as I had, that success isn't about who you know or what table you sit at. It's about what you build when no one's watching, what you achieve while they're busy underestimating you. The next morning, my assistant handed me a stack of messages from my family. They've been calling all morning, she said. Your sister's husband seems particularly anxious about his corporate account. I took the messages and dropped them straight into the shredder. Send out the new membership guidelines to all properties, I instructed. And Sarah, make sure the Carter family is not on the preferred list. What about the Sunday brunches? She asked. I smiled, remembering all the times Madison had excluded me from those precious social gatherings. Tell them those spots are reserved for people who understand that success isn't about where you sit. It's about how you treat people when you think they're beneath you. Sarah nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. She'd been with me since the beginning, had watched me build this empire piece by piece while my family dismissed every achievement. Oh, and one more thing, I added. That kid's table in the grand room, remove it. In my restaurants, everyone deserves a seat at the main table. As I sat down at my desk, looking out over the Boston skyline, I thought about success and what it really means. My family had always measured it in obvious displays, designer clothes, expensive cars, prestigious addresses. But real success, I'd learned, isn't about what you can show off. It's about what you can build, what you can change, and most importantly, who you become in the process. I picked up my phone and made one call. Emma, this is your cousin Olivia. How would you like to learn about running a restaurant? I think you might have what it takes to build something special of your own someday. After all, sometimes the quiet ones are just busy building something extraordinary.